Well, we are in the middle of the holiday season right now, and 2024 is just a couple of days away. So let's talk about some travel plans then and the trends that we're seeing, the demand environment. Rajesh Magow, the co-founder, Group CEO at MakeMyTrip, is with us on the show. Rajesh, morning. This is Reema here. First question, right? What are the gross bookings looking like, say for this Christmas weekend and even for this October to December quarter, which is generally seasonally strong? What are the numbers?
Yeah. Good morning. Thank you for having me on this lovely foggy morning in Delhi. I don't know if you guys have experienced it or not, but it's quite foggy today morning, and it's actually a great setting for spending time out with the family, etc. as well. So coming back to your question, we've seen very robust holiday quarter trends. As we were sort of expecting it as well. It had a slow start, to be honest. Early days in getting into the quarter, starting in October and November until the World Cup, and as soon as the World Cup got over, it just took off because people were sort of maybe distracted with the World Cup games. Of course, we got some surge where the India featured games were happening in those particular cities, but in general. Over the weekends, people were just watching more cricket than wanting to step out. After that, it took off, and then from there on, the overall booking trends has been picking, and as they would typically do in the holiday season, in the previous years, as we see now, specifically to this long weekend. In fact, from 23rd onwards, we have like full peak sort of travel dates. 23rd, 24th, 25th was a long weekend. We have one more coming up on 30th, 31st, and 1st. And we've seen, sort of record breaking bookings happening, record breaking check-ins happening on a single day, on our platform. For our hotel business, we would have seen a record single day checking in of the customers into the hotels. Which would be about 20% increase of the previous peak. And that's fantastic. And similar trends sort of for flight bookings and so on. What happens during this time is that every segment, now minus the work segment, which is understandable, the leisure, the pilgrimage, the, visiting family and relatives, all segments all come together. And they come together, sure. All of it together at the same time, and that sort of helps in growth in the bookings. So across the board, we've seen bookings happening, and like I said, record-breaking sort of long weekend bookings. Yeah.
No, absolutely, and we see that visibly whenever we're at the airports or whenever we're trying to, find rooms at hotels these days. You said 20% over the previous peak. So, that peak was last year, or was that peak pre-COVID? And how much higher are we versus 2019, I mean, the pre-COVID era?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So what I was talking about was the previous peak long weekend. So like to like, let's say 3 days long weekend this year itself. And if you start comparing it with over 2019-20, which is pre-pandemic, they're also, on top of, let's say, comparing the peak in 1920, we've seen about 20-25% growth from 1920 peak as well. And specifically for, sort of single day check-in, the data point that I was referring to. On an overall, this has been a growth year, and this has been a growth holiday season quarter as well. If you start comparing it with the 2019-20, both in volume terms as well as in the value terms. In fact, a lot more in the value terms, partly because of inflation, partly because of the price rise, as we all know. And, the other part is that it's also I actually attribute that to a fundamental habit change where people have started to spend a lot more on experiences. And within the experience, it is actually travel. So people have the frequency of travel has gone up. The number of holidays they would typically take in a year have gone up, which is a combination of the short stay vacation and specifically in this at this time of the year, it's actually long duration holiday. It's on average, you will have 3 nights to as many about 7 nights.
Absolutely, absolutely, Rajesh. You're talking to people who feel it, experience it when we're on our holiday. Even when we're not on our holidays, we're planning the next one or thinking about the next one. So I think it really applies to all of us here, and the trend has only picked up after COVID. Now, let me ask you the business question. Clearly, the opportunity is huge. The numbers are peaking, and the industry is really booming. But what about the business itself? Today there are far more travel operators, aggregators versus say 5-6 years ago. MakeMyTrip was the first, but there are more in the market. So how intense is the competitive landscape? And in terms of market share, in terms of strategy, in terms of growth, what is it that you're witnessing? I know, for instance, there's one point on convenience fee that became a bit of a differentiator for some of your competitors. But going forward, what can we expect in terms of just competition in the travel space?
Yeah, sure. No, I think it's a great question as well. So, if you really look at it overall, firstly, if I take a step back and talk about the overall sort of business opportunity in the travel space. So the good news there is that the overall pie is growing. And if you look at from a long-term outlook standpoint, on the back of infrastructure expansion happening, airports expansion happening, the demand patterns are changing. The long-term outlook looks absolutely great. And therefore, there is room for sort of more players in the market as well, perhaps. But specifically, when you go deeper into the competition, and that is the way we typically do it, you have to sort of compare and go deeper to see segment by segment and not necessarily look at it holistically, because, from our point of view, if you see MakeMyTrip offers pretty much every travel use case. So we are like a one-stop shop. But if you start to compare with some of the others, and look at the business numbers, etc., you would see on a particular specific segment, let's say for flights, domestic flights, which probably is the easiest one to sort of get into because of the unidimensional product. But when it comes to, the hotel segment, the packages segment, the homestay segment, a lot more sort of experiential product where it takes a lot to build that business, which we've sort of invested behind. There you will see that the competition is relatively weaker, and we sort of, when we look at the numbers, we end up competing with maybe more global OTAs or the aggregators, as you put it, rather than anyone sort of seriously in the Indian market. But when you look at let's say flight segment, yes, there will be more players in the market, but like I said, the overall opportunity is big. And the flight market is growing. I know right now there's a bit of a temporary constraint. Sorry, just to complete the thought, I was just going to say just the temporary supply side constraint that is happening within the domestic market. But 2 quarters down the line, the outlook looks very positive.
Okay, Rajesh, I have 2 questions, but I just want to address the new listing as well. Let's just put that up. Innova CapTab, I think, has come to the market, and the prices should come up to just take a look at it. There you go. Stocks at about 500 rupees. It's about 12% higher as compared to the issue price. So that's the latest in terms of listing. We've had 1, 2, 3 a day in the entirety of this week. So keeping in line with that. Today, of course, there's only 1. Rajesh, rapid fire, 3 questions from me. As a percentage of gross bookings, what is the margin you make?
Yeah, so if you look at our reported results, you would see at an aggregate level, on a blended basis, we do 10% at a gross take rate level, and at about 15% at an adjusted operating profit level.
Okay. No, EBIT margin is a percentage of gross booking?
No, EBIT margin is a percentage of revenue. I would say, so if you look at it from the gross booking, it will be 1.5%.
Okay. Do you think, what should we, so you are the early leader, will the online booking space grow at what, 10%, 15% for the foreseeable future? What is your prognosis?
Yeah, so, if you see, Prashant, historically, and I don't think it's changing, it's also a function of, the internet penetration, which that that has been growing. Now the gap has to be bridged between internet penetration and e-commerce penetration, specifically on travel. So if you keep some of those sort of macro factors in mind, what we've seen is that the overall travel market grows about double digit, so 10-12%. So if you look at some of the industry reports that have come out, they're talking about 10-12% overall growth for the next 3-4 years of the overall travel market. And our thumb rule for the online market is that you would always see online market growing at a 2x, if not more, of the total travel market.
So around at about 20%, basically.
Yes.
There's market share, and of course within that there'll be market share movements, etc. as well.
That is correct.
Any plans to list? Any plans to list here, Rajesh? You're the original.
Yeah. Well, we don't know.
The US.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, see, thankfully the stock in the US market has also recovered nicely and doing quite well.
Yeah.
And we've been listed there for, over 13 years now.
Yeah.
And it's so far so good. I mean, we've sort of clarified that we don't have immediate plans to, but, it will always be in consideration when we feel the need of sort of raising capital, which we don't feel we are profitable today. We have a very strong balance sheet. So it'll be a function of when you really need, and then at that point in time, would we want to evaluate India market or not? Will be a matter of evaluation at that point in time.
You need it, don't need it, but this is the market to do an IPO. I'm listed here. I was just joking, but it's great conversation, Rajesh, and we hope to do more of these. Appreciate you joining us and providing us with a nice sort of summary of what the industry trends look like across the online sort of travel hotel booking space. Of course, you do much more than that now. So one-stop shop, as you called it. We'll